Alright guys, the games are coming thick and fast over this festive period, but we're back again for our weekly score predictions. Big fixture list coming up in the Championship this weekend, and of course we've got all the midweek matches to digest as we go through the video. Do get your reaction to those midweek games down below, plenty of talking points to sink our teeth into. If you do go to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, and if you've not already, make sure to go ahead and drop a follow over on TikTok as well. But without any further ado, let's jump into these matches. And what a way for us to kick off the weekend with the return of the East Anglian derby. It's Ipswich up against Norwich, and I'm expecting fireworks. Now, don't get me wrong, in the league as unpredictable as the Championship, with this game being the early kickoff, anything could happen. But I think it goes without saying that Ipswich are the overwhelming favourites for this fixture, which is a real flip of the script from how these two sides have previously been perceived. Throughout the time that I've been reporting on the Championship, whenever we get the chance to preview an East Anglian derby, it would always be without fail Norwich coming into the game as the overwhelming favourites. To put into context the recent history between these two sides, Norwich are 12 games without a defeat against Ipswich. Ipswich's last win against Norwich came all the way back in 2009, but we're in a new time now, and the way Ipswich have been absolutely relentless, especially at Portman Road, I think it's hard to see past an Ipswich three-pointer in this game, if I'm honest. Now, Norwich have had the opportunity to build a little bit of momentum coming into this fixture. It was a point against Preston at the weekend, followed it up with all 3 points against Sheff Wednesday in midweek, but this will be such a different game than those two that Norwich have previously played that I'm not sure they're going to be ready for what's going to hit them at Portman Road, because Ipswich are going to be absolutely all over them like a rash. With how leaky that Norwich back line has been this season, I just can't see past Ipswich scoring a bucket load of goals in this game. It will be interesting if Norwich do stick with Kenny McLean as a centre-half as well. He's done that job fairly reasonably well so far, but this game against Ipswich is just a different kettle of fish at the moment. Score prediction for me personally, I think we're going to get goals. I think a lot of them are going to be in Ipswich's favour. For me, I'm going 3-1 Ipswich in this game, which would be some statement result. We then go to Ashton Gate for Bristol City up against Sunderland, and Sunderland seriously hitting some form right now after parting company with Tony Mowbray. Don't think any Sunderland fan would have believed you if you told them coming into this week that they'll have picked up 6 points from games against West Brom and Leeds United, but they marshalled that game in midweek absolutely expertly. Don't think that many sides will manage to keep a clean sheet against that Leeds side this season, but they managed to limit them to relatively half chances, generally speaking, and great for Bellingham to get on the score sheet after that one from the weekend was ruled out. I think a lot of people will probably see Sunderland as the favourites in this one with how they've picked up recently. For Bristol City and Manning, it's just not quite happened for them yet. Just one win from Manning's first 6 games in charge was the defeat for them in midweek against Blackburn. Looked like a bit more endeavour from them attacking wise in the second half of that game, but ultimately not enough quality and creativity has been a bit of an issue for that Bristol City side of late. Score prediction in this one, I'm going to go 2-1 Sunderland and back them for 3 wins on the bounce. Next then we go to Hull up against Cardiff. Not a whole lot to separate these two sides in the league right now, just 3 points, but it is Hull who are coming into this game with a little bit more momentum. Brilliant result for them in midweek. Did think they were looking a little bit uninspiring without Jaden Philogene, definitely lacking that spark with him currently out injured, but credit to Rossini for changing things up in the second half. 5 substitutes in that second half against Borough. After that, they go on and score 2 goals and win that game. Gives them a big boost coming into this game against the Cardiff side, who have not been that hot on recently. After that defeat against Birmingham in midweek, it's now just 2 wins from their last 7 games. Creativity has been a bit of an issue for them recently. I wouldn't be surprised if this is quite a tight game and of quite fine margins, but I think it's got to be Hull that I am edging in this one. Score prediction for me personally, I'm going to go 1-0 Hull. That would be a big boost for them, making it back-to-back wins. Next then we go to Ellen Road for Leeds up against Coventry. Bit of a disappointing midweek overall for Leeds United, I think it's fair to say, losing a bit of ground in the top 2 race with both Ipswich and Leicester winning, and obviously Leeds dropping points with that loss against Sunderland. What does have to be said about Leeds this season is they have had very good bounce back ability. Other than the first 2 games of the season, when whenever Leeds have dropped points this season, they've always responded with a win immediately after that game in which they have dropped points. That certainly favours them, along with an exquisite home record that they have boasted so far this season. With all that being said, Coventry are going to be no pushovers. They've only lost one of their last 6 matches, that game being against Ipswich. It was a solid point for them, I thought, in midweek against Southampton. Having Callum O'Hare back in that side as that creative spark, I think is absolutely massive for Coventry, and them looking to push back up the Championship and get themselves back to within playoff contention. All things considered though, my gut feeling is saying that Leeds probably just about bounce back from that midweek setback. Score prediction here, I'm going 2-1 to Leeds, but Coventry could very easily get something there. Next up then to the Den, and an absolutely huge game at the bottom of the Championship. It's Millwall going up against Huddersfield. Both teams on 21 points as things stand, each coming off the back of a loss in midweek, and there's no denying this is really a must-win game for both sides if they want to really be serious about their survival chances. Now, we saw Millwall taking a bit of an unlikely lead against Leicester in midweek, but ultimately the Foxes' quality told in the second half. Millwall did get a late goal back in that one as well, but it wasn't to be. Huddersfield, I have to admit, really disappointed with their midweek performance against Preston. I obviously got to see them over a full 90 minutes, and you can see why they are in the position in the table they're in right now. There is a real lack of quality in that starting 11, and for me, a real lack of ideas as well. Apart from a little bit of a spell at the start of the second half against Preston, Huddersfield offered next to nothing in that game, and will absolutely need to have a reaction in this one. I know that Millwall's home record hasn't really favoured them so far this season, and a draw absolutely wouldn't surprise me right now, but between these two sides, if I had to pick one of them who was in more of a false position, it probably would be Millwall. I think they've got more quality in their squad than their league position is showing right now, and I'm going to back them to get a job done in this game, although I'm not completely confident in that. Score prediction for me though, I'm going to go 2-1 Millwall. Next then we go to Plymouth up against Rotherham. It was a good battling point for Plymouth in midweek. They faced 29 shots in the end against QPR. QPR dominating the ball, obviously due to the fact that they were playing against 10 men for the majority of that game, but a solid point for Plymouth on the road nonetheless, and they do come into this game, I think, needing a win, to be honest. It has been their home form that has been keeping them afloat of the bottom 3 so far this season, but still, that gap between the bottom 3 and Plymouth still only stands at 3 points right now, but a win in this game would make them significantly more comfortable. For Rotherham, it was Liam Richardson's first game in charge in midweek, a 2-0 loss against West Brom. Once again, creativity I think is going to be a major issue for this Rotherham side between now and the end of the season. And I stack both 11s up against each other right here. It is Plymouth who have significantly more goals in their ranks, and if their forwards are on it in this game, I think there are a few goals to be had for the home side. Score prediction for me personally, I'm going to go 3-1 Plymouth, which would put a nice cushion between them and the bottom 3. After that, we head to Deepdale for Preston up against Watford. Now for Preston, it was a much improved performance over midweek, a good result against Huddersfield, but more so than that, the fans have been desperate to see a decent performance recently, and we did get that in midweek. Liam Miller with some lovely touches, Alan Brown with a fantastic performance, but I do think, as good as Preston were in that game in midweek, it is worth taking with a pinch of salt, because Huddersfield really weren't at the races whatsoever, and this will be a much sterner test against the Watford side, who generally speaking I have been quite impressed by recently. No, they didn't get a result in midweek, but still thought they put on really quite a decent performance against Ipswich. It was just that individual mistake at the back at the end which ultimately cost them at a time in the game when they were seemingly trying to go for the winner themselves. So Watford expected a much more resilient side than Preston went up against in midweek, and to be honest, I don't think there'll be that much in this one. I don't think that Preston will be quite as brave maybe as we were in midweek, and we maybe will see a bit more of a defensive performance, with us being aware of the threats that Watford will bring into this one. Honestly, wouldn't be surprised if this finishes level. Score prediction for me, gonna go for a 1-1er here. Tough to split these two. Sheffield Wednesday against QPR is a massive game at the bottom of the Championship. It was a disappointing result, probably for both sides in midweek actually. Sheffield Wednesday losing against Norwich, albeit performance levels were still relatively decent. Wednesday got into a lot of decent areas in that game against Norwich, and a few mistakes at the back ultimately cost them. For QPR, a point against Plymouth. On the surface isn't the worst result, but the fact they played the vast majority of that game against 10 men but just couldn't unlock the opposition despite having around 29 shots will always be a frustrating one. Now both sides have shown massive upturns in forms under their new managers, but it's these sorts of matches which ultimately are absolutely pivotal in their survival chances. For QPR, they could leapfrog several sides this weekend with all 3 points in this game. Sheffield Wednesday won't get the opportunity to do that, but they will considerably close the gap between themselves and QPR, which keeps them alive and active in the relegation battle. Score prediction in this one, I could definitely see 1 goal either way winning it, but I think I'm sitting on the fence, going for a 1-1 draw between these two. Don't think there'll be much in it. Next then we go to Southampton up against Blackburn. A much needed win for Blackburn in midweek, 2-1 against Bristol City. Keeps them alive and active in the top 6 chase. There's not really been a lot of consistency with a lot of that chase impact that is just below the top 6 right now. This will be a tough game against the Southampton side who stretched their unbeaten run to 13 games in midweek. It's been a general pattern throughout that unbeaten run for Southampton for there to have been quite a lot of draws on the road, but for them to get the job properly done at home with all 3 points. I think that's how I'm sort of edging in this game. I'm expecting a decent game of football between two sides who will be looking to build the ball out from the back, get into good goal scoring positions, each of them. Or Southampton, I think, who will have that extra bit of quality. So really interesting position that Southampton find themselves in right now, because while they have been on this fantastic unbeaten run, they've not really made up any ground on the top 2 because they're just so far clear right now. So it's really been about solidifying their place in the top 6, and against fellow promotion chasers like Blackburn, this is an opportunity for Southampton to do that. So score prediction in this one, I'm slightly edging the Saints for a 2-1 home victory. Next then we go to Swansea up against Middlesbrough. Two sides, neither of which have been in great form recently, and a win in this one really would do either side the world of good. Swansea have been fairly draw heavy. It was another draw for them in midweek, now meaning that 4 of their last 7 matches have ended level, but they could sense this is a bit of an opportunity to go up against the Borough side who have been a bit down on their luck recently. Definitely a depleted squad, and another disappointing result for them in midweek, throwing that 1-goal lead away against Hull for the Tigers to turn things around in the second half. Now means it is 3 defeats on the bounce for Michael Carrick's side. Really felt like Middlesbrough were on the cusp of something after they beat North End 4-0, but since that point they've really fell off. Score prediction for me in this game, wouldn't be surprised if it ends level. Don't think either side's at their best right now. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in there. After that, we head to the Hawthorns for West Brom up against Stoke. Good result for West Brom in midweek. Didn't seem like there was that much goalmouth action in their game against Rotherham, but got the job done in a professional manner, and Jed Wallace with a lovely free kick to go on and win that game. Do think this one will be slightly trickier up against Stoke now that maybe they will have that little bit of a bounce post-Neil. I thought that midweek they seemed to get into some decent areas in terms of chance creation, but it's been their real Achilles heel so far this season, Stoke, of getting into good positions and not killing off the game when they've got the opportunity to. I think that so far this season, only Sheffield Wednesday and Coventry have underperformed their XG more than Stoke have, so that's been a real problem for them, and ultimately switching off at the opposite end cost them all 3 points in that one, giving away a bit of a cheap goal from a set piece. Nevertheless, don't think there'll be that much in this game, but I just think that West Brom, when the chances come their way, will be more clinical than Stoke will, and that's why I give them the edge in this one. Score prediction for me, I'm going to go 2-1 to the Baggies. Fancy them for back-to-back wins there. And then to finish things off, at St Andrews, we go to Birmingham up against Leicester. Finally, Wayne Rooney getting his 2nd win as Blues boss over the midweek period with all 3 points against Cardiff. Not getting too carried away with that. I think this will be a much sterner test, and Blues fans will need to see that consistency from Rooney and his team in getting a few more results on the board. Leicester, it was another win for them in midweek. Made things maybe a little tricky for themselves going behind in the first half against Millwall, conceding late on as well, but got the job done in a very professional manner in that second half, and pound for pound, I think Leicester will get the job done in this one despite Blues' improvement in midweek. Score prediction for me, I'm going to go 2-0 to the Foxes. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, and do leave your score predictions in the comments down below. Other than that though guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.